Gold, the great seducer. In the recent financial turmoil, its value has soared as it becomes the safe bet of choice for global investors. But getting hold of the elusive element is often far from safe, with small-scale miners risking their health not just through back-breaking labour in dangerous conditions, but through constant exposure to poisonous mercury used to extract the precious metal from its ore. Now, a new global agreement on mercury is under negotiation by governments, while the UNEP Global Mercury Partnership is working to reduce and eliminate mercury use. Together, these efforts offer real hope that the miners and the environment can be protected from this toxic chemical, without reducing the important contribution of small-scale gold mining to development. Small-scale artisanal gold mining is booming throughout the world. The Artisanal Gold Council estimates that between 12 and 15 million people in over 70 countries are employed in the sector, producing up to 20% of the total gold supply. Unlike many primary producers, artisan miners typically get a good share of the eventual market price.
So when you buy gold from a small-scale gold miner, you're paying 70–80% of the international price. That's almost never true for any other product. It directly transfers wealth very efficiently from rich to poor.
But there's a downside: mercury. A powerful neurotoxin that's especially harmful to children and unborn babies. Mercury is used to separate the gold from its ore. The liquid metal bonds with gold particles to form amalgam. Here in Mangkahoi, Indonesia, as in many parts of the world, it's common practice to add mercury to unrefined ore. This process uses large quantities of mercury, much of which is released into the environment. To recover gold from the amalgam, it's heated to evaporate the mercury. This is often done within the miners' homes and villages, directly exposing women and children to the toxic fumes.
We are afraid of the effects of mercury on our health, but this is our livelihood, and we have to take care of our immediate needs.
That's about as forthcoming as the miners of Mangkahoi would be on the subject of their occupational hazards. Even this man, Pathuda, claimed to be unconcerned about the risks, despite showing many of the classic signs of mercury poisoning.
If you look at him, you see nervous twitches on his face, you see his eyes are not right. I've always felt that he's a victim of mercury poisoning because I know he burns a lot of mercury.
Pathuda's condition is not unusual, according to Somali Agrawal, who works as an environmental manager for a local NGO.
People who use mercury are usually in denial about the health impacts, unless they're getting older. We encountered one person and he said, "Now you come." And he knew he was dying, and he knew that it had been mercury over the years that had killed him.
Worldwide, small-scale gold mining releases at least 1,400 tons of mercury to the environment every year, according to the Artisanal Gold Council.
So this mercury is just being washed away down here, and we investigated this river, and in 3 hours of digging we collected 0.5 kilogram of mercury, so we can expect that there's actually tons of mercury residing in this little creek.
Once in the environment, mercury can find its way into fish and other living things and bioaccumulate up the food chain, reaching its highest concentrations in humans at the top. Attempts by individual governments to ban mercury outright have often failed in the past, but more recent efforts have achieved success through a subtler approach.
If you impose a zero mercury kind of regime right away, you don't have the opportunity to engage with the communities. So they may continue to use mercury clandestinely. You need to establish a positive relationship with them, and the way to do that might be to teach them how to use less mercury, because mercury is expensive. We might teach them how to recycle that mercury and use that same mercury 20 times.
Recycling can be achieved with a simple device called a retort.
So he's putting the amalgam into the retort. The mercury will move through the condenser pipe and will condense and come back out to be recycled.
The use of these small $30 retorts is now standard practice in the village, since first being introduced in 2006. They can recycle up to 95% of the amalgamated mercury.
When we first came here, this was incredibly contaminated, but now fortunately they're all using these much more efficient retorts, so we've managed to reduce the contamination in the air dramatically.
More sophisticated, fan-powered retorts have also been introduced to the shops of Kereng Pangi, where much of the gold processed in Mangkahoi ends up. Other ways to reduce mercury use include concentrating the ore before making the amalgam. One technique is to pour a slurry of ore and water down a sluice lined with carpet. The heavy gold particles get trapped in the fabric, creating a concentrate to which reduced quantities of mercury can be added. Other programs around the world have eliminated mercury entirely, using technologies such as centrifuges and shaking tables. Such programs work best, as at this mercury-free cooperative in Choco, Colombia, where the miners involved are licensed to operate in the formal economy.
To completely eliminate the mercury likely involves formalization to some degree. So they need to become organized into small groups that can pool capital. They can have leaders, they can be trained to use slightly more sophisticated processes. Something as simple as a centrifuge, but a centrifuge is not cheap. The good news is that most of the zero mercury practices can yield more gold. So there's an economic incentive also to move to zero mercury.
The creation of a legally binding instrument on mercury is an opportunity to increase the uptake of cheap and effective practical measures such as retorts, as well as policies that encourage miners to be part of the formal economy.
It is UNEP's hope that by 2013 governments will agree on a global mercury convention to rid the world of a substance that ultimately is more harmful than it is beneficial to us. Clearly, our interest is to continue to ensure that artisanal gold mining is a part of our economies. Our engagement with governments, but also with leaders in the communities and also the industry, is aimed at ensuring that future generations will no longer have to face the undue risks that arise from the use of mercury.